Live now.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and a warm welcome to all of you to Accelerate CXO Conclave. My name is Kavya R. Chavali, and I will be joining you all as I spearhead the proceedings of the conclave. Most importantly, as we come together to hear from some of the amazing thought leaders, as well as industry leaders around data, cloud, AI security, even as we focus on a very pertinent theme, which is to do with resilient leadership. Prepare today, prevail tomorrow. I do believe the last 16 months, if there is one word that actually surfaced in terms of a dictionary word, or for that matter, in terms of an action, it would be the word resilience, and most importantly, resilient leadership. So it's time to hear from the leaders, and our first panel discussion focuses around the tech innovation and impact on future. And this is going to be the CXO leadership panel. I'm going to be urging our members of the audience to also keep posing your questions so that our session moderators will be more than happy to have them answered towards the end of the session. So while we do that, let's quickly deep dive into the opening panel discussion. And let me quickly introduce our set of amazing panelists who are joining us this morning. First up, spearheading the session for all of us, we have with us Ms. Priya Gilbile, COO, Manipal Cigna Health Insurance. In fact, she's a seasoned professional with rich and diverse experience of over 21 years in the healthcare and health insurance. So she will be the one who's extracting all the insights from fellow panelists. That also include Mr. Rajneet Kohli, President and Chief Business Officer, Domino's Jubilant Foodworks Limited. In fact, he's a result-oriented, innovative, value-driven leader with over 24 years of diverse experience in the FMCG and retail. Joining them, we also have with us Mr. Ashton De Cruz, Director, Chief Administrative Officer and CISO, NatWest Markets PLC India. And he's someone who's armed with an experience of more than 2 decades. And in his current stint, in fact, he's playing a multifaceted role. We're also joined by Mr. Chirag Boonlia, CTO, Embassy Property Developments Private Limited, who's a passionate leader with more than 20 years of rich and varied experience, having worked in various roles and responsibilities in business transformation, transcending across multiple domains. Our next speaker is Mr. Shashwat Singh, CIO Boat, an experienced tech strategist who is adept at formulating long and short-term tech strategy for complex, agile business environments. And with that, let's also move forward to welcoming our next set of panelists. We also have with us Mr. Ganapati V, Head Global Advanced Analytics Center of Excellence, Wholesome Group, a transformational expert and someone who's turned into a senior analytics business transformation professional, offering enriched analytical skills. So it'll be interesting to gather his insights at the panel discussion as well. We're also joined by Mr. Dipendra Singh, Vice President, BI and Analytics, Junglee Games, and he comes with more than a decade of ubiquitous experience in banking, campaign, as well as risk analytics. And that, of course, leaves us with our final thought leader who's joining us to share his fabulous insights. We have with us none other than Mr. Jasjeet Sethi, Chief Executive Officer, TCI Supply Chain Solutions, someone who comes with more than 2 decades of experience, and he has been instrumental in driving TCI towards an all-new business frontiers over the last 2 decades. So with that, considering that we've got such an amazing set of speakers in our very opening panel discussion, without any delay, let's deep dive into this very interesting topic coming your way. And with that, in a few seconds, we'll get our panelists on board and get the session started. Here we go.
Thank you, Kavya, and the Kazikami team for organizing such a fantastic panel discussion today. Welcome to all our panelists in such a powerhouse of experience and diverse expertise and experience across the board. So thank you very much. On that note, we begin our first panel discussion around CXO conclave. So today's organization, as we all know, have pivoted from pandemic recovery back to work. And many are realizing the strategy needed to calibrate and even redesign today's world versus the pre-pandemic and pre-COVID era was very different. And why is that? It's because everything up is for reimagination right now. How we live, how we work, how we shop, and how we socialize, how we interact in general. And accordingly, our customer behavior is changing. With that, it's extremely important to reflect that experience is going through a renaissance of the sort. This presents a massive opportunity for those organizations who don't just observe shifting the expectations, but shaping the organization with the ambition of creating the new normal and new value for meaningful and authentic experiences. With that, we kind of open up our first topic, our topic for panel discussion today: tech innovation and impact on future. And who else than the leadership here on this panel can throw light and really reflect on what could be the future driven by technology and innovation in every single field expertise begin in. So on that note, welcome to all the panelists. And I would request each panelist to really reflect on the topic of tech innovation and impact on future in your respective areas of expertise and industry. And what are the perceived challenges according to you in implementing advanced technology, such as AI, robotics, and machine learning, relevance of data science and SaaS, and of course, the very important, privacy and keeping the customer trust at the center of everything that we do. So on that note, I welcome you all and, request you to share your thoughts. Shashwat, can we go ahead with you?
Absolutely. Thanks, Priya, for steering this for us, and all the panel members for joining in. I'm looking forward to a very enriching discussion. Well, it's a very interesting topic which we're discussing today, right? Tech innovation and its impact on future. And as Priya rightly pointed out, we are living through the most interesting times that our generation would probably experience. The pandemic has changed the world as we knew it, right? March 2020 was when the world kind of came to a standstill with the lockdown imposed restrictions. Tech and innovation actually played a very vital role in getting things back to normal, or the new normal as we refer to it right now. Now, this is reflective also in some of the latest tech trends that the industry experts are calling out. And let me quote three of the tech trends that Gartner has called out in its 2021 tech trend report. So one, anywhere operations. The second one is total experience, and the third one, which is Internet of Behaviors. Now, we've seen, one of the fastest adoption of virtual meeting platforms like Zoom, Teams, Gmeet, etc. And not just by the corporates, but, by even dance teachers, yoga teachers, chess teachers as well, right? Now, it is dawn of an era which was not imaginable when we started 2020. Let me talk about the tech trends that I spoke of. So anywhere operations, now the onus lies on the corporates to facilitate that their employees are their best productive self from anywhere. Yeah. Total experience was the other tech trend that I spoke of. Now, it is not just restricted to your customer and consumer experience, but getting a 360 view, including all your stakeholders, your suppliers, employees, and everyone else who works with you directly or indirectly. And lastly, Internet of Things is something that we've been hearing about for a very long time now. The newest tech trend is Internet of Behavior. Can I use data from IoT to influence behavior? So for example, some companies have implemented tech-based solutions to ensure that social distancing is followed in their shop floor, right? We would discuss this more maybe during the course of the panel, but just to summarize, tech-led innovation has established itself as front and center of org strategies now, and the recent times have firmly established the fact that we cannot envision a future in which tech doesn't play a central role. Back to you, Priya.
Thank you. Extremely important, input, Shashwat. It's no more only about customers, it's all stakeholders and a 360 view. Ranjit, Ashton, any quick word, and then we'll deep dive into, kind of getting more, color to the conversation and industry experience and expertise. Yeah. Ranjit, any quick word from you?
Hi, Priya, thanks. And you can call me Raj. Easier, and lovely to be here on this panel. I think Shashwat just pointed out we're facing one of the biggest black swan events of our life, and none of us as leaders, had any playbook in our B schools to manage any of these crises. I mean, none of the B schools kind of prepared us for this. If 2020, as you mentioned, was a new normal, I would say FY 2021 started as an abnormal with wave 2. I would only say that companies and industries which are all impacted, have been able to pivot and commit to making specific big moves, are the ones which are thriving, right? And these big moves are all about how you disrupt your business by keeping customer in the center, and also marrying the customer thing with the tech part, which I'm here to learn and actually here for. Well, I'm not a soothsayer, and I don't have a crystal ball to say what the future holds for us, but I'm very sure that companies and leaders who will be able to marry this together, the customer expectations and tech will not only just thrive, but actually will be able to drive the future. So looking forward to the session to learn from all these team panelists. Thank
Lovely,
you.
lovely, Raj, very good context. Whatever technology or advancement we're talking about, all of them, kind of nurtured with, customers at the center would really be the cusp of next evolution. So thank you for sharing your views, Raj. And Ashton, any quick word from you?
Sure. Thanks, Priya, and good morning to my fellow panelists and the listening audience. So since we are basically talking about a very diverse subject, etc., I will just stick to the limitations and the challenges here. So I'll call them out very randomly. Again, it's something to do with the culture. Where do we have the culture to adopt? Again, the lack of support or the full support from the top management that we are talking about. And maybe potential resistance to change. As human beings, we always resist change. So any adoption and successful adoption of technology requires us to be able to adapt and adopt to change. So these were the few things that I would put up. Again, change, however, is the only constant, and the pandemic has very clearly shown us. It was forced upon us in this instance. It was not something that we would have automatically embraced, but it came upon us and it came for the better in a way. And that's the reason why we have now made the advances that we have made. Having said that, and coming back to the topic that we are discussing, when we consider AI and ML, I would understand and I would think and strongly believe that with successful adaptation of this particular technology,
I think, Ashton, we've had some challenge with Ashton's connection. So why don't I move forward, and great, input from Ashton. Going back to Shashwat, in your opinion, Shashwat, what do you think changes and benefits and challenges can be looked forward through implementation of SaaS? I mean, we're talking a lot about changing customer behaviors and all of those, hyper personalization coming to fore. So with that, data and analytics is going to be the new normal, driving, the strategy and the technological advancement. With that, what do you think? What are the new cloud-based technologies that would come across various industries? And also, can you throw light on how new age digital and data tools can come handy to manage and also go beyond the customer expectation, given the change in the behavior, driving, through insights and any kind of strategy changes? So, could you please throw some light on that, Shashwat? Yeah.
Sure. So, SaaS and cloud-based technologies actually are playing a really pivotal role while organizations are designing their future state operating models, pay per use and scale as we go. Now, these are the two things which SaaS-based platforms as well as cloud technologies have unlocked for us, for organizations like ours, to be able to use the latest and the best which is out there without incurring significant upfront costs. Now, it also frees up the CIOs and the CXOs bandwidth to do what they're meant to, to innovate with tech rather than worrying about the infrastructure and scalability aspects. Keeping it crisp here. So coming to data, let me start with a quick quote. So Deming once said, in God we trust and all others must bring data, right? So importance of data and the ability of organizations, to be able to traverse the entire information continuum, right from, operational tactical reports to prescriptive predictive insights, is extremely key in their success. Data-led insights are, facilitating companies to stock right, price right, distribute it right. And data-led insights and predictions have helped organizations to navigate the pandemic-induced issues as well, really well in the past. The fact that SaaS-based tools and compute power on the cloud has become so affordable and cheap is further propelling this. So at our organization, at Boat, we are already on this path of traversing the entire information continuum and to be able to drive growth using data. Back to you, Priya.
Lovely, lovely. And indeed can witness that with the growth story, Shashwat. So thanks for those inputs. We've Ashton, back to you. How do you, foresee what is the role of AI in robotics? And given your role as a CISO and, Chief Administrative Officer, how do you see these tools of AI, robotics, machine learning in banking and financing sector, as well as, given the background, and how do you, how do we ensure this whole paradigm around customer privacy and, kind of honoring the trust bit of it? So how do we have controls and checks and, measures in place to safeguard our customers' money? So any thoughts on that, Ashton?
So very interesting question, actually, and in a way, a catch-22. So I usually am of the belief technology adoption in any organization is driven by various factors. So you can talk about the industry type, the segment where you're operating in. You could talk about your size in terms of a small, medium, large enterprise. What is the jurisdiction that you operate under? What are the regulatory requirements? And I'll actually stress upon regulatory environment, because within the BFSI sector, we tend to be slightly more regulated than most other sectors. But these are the various parameters that drive technology adoption, right? Coming to the question that you posed in terms of AI, ML, robotics implementation within the BFSI space, again, and I will dwell upon it in two phases, again, because of the dual roles that I hold. One is we usually adopt, and we have adopted this technology to drive business strategy and business growth, to be able to see what our business opportunities are, what is the strategy we have, what is the next gen requirement, what are the millennials requirement, do we want to still stick with traditional banking methods, do we want to get into digitalization in a full-fledged way? All of these parameters drive business strategy, which AI and ML definitely help in. The other part is, and that's where I wear my CISO hat, is to secure and safeguard our assets as a bank, as an entity. Okay, and AI and ML helps in a large way in this sense as well. Okay, and how does it help? Again, it goes across the entire sphere, right up from being a deterrent by being able to evaluate accesses, evaluate SIMs, and prevent it in the first place. So it's a deterrent, it's a preventive measure. It can also be a detective measure, and it could also be a corrective measure. So it covers all four gamuts from a security perspective. Coming to the other question that you had, how do we safeguard our assets? And that's where I come to the statement I made earlier in terms of data. So any of these technologies, the key component to drive success and the percentage of success on this technology is the data that you use to implement the technology. If you throw in trash, and pardon the language, but if you throw in data that is not correct into the system, even the outputs that you get will not be correct. So data is key. So data is here the new oil or the gold and the fuel which drives these technologies. But with data comes the various other requirements that we have, GDPR, Personal Data Acts, etc., and all in terms of customer privacy and secrecy of data, confidentiality of data. And also the fact is whether that data, or they need that data to be used to be able to give them better services. So it's a fine line, and it's something that we have to be constantly and dynamically managing. I cannot say that this is the right thing to do, because it could be the right thing to do at this time on the 28th of October. That may not be the case, maybe a day later even. So it's a fine balance. It's something that we are managing, but my key points would have been we need to look at it from both sides, both as from a business driving perspective as well as from a security perspective, and we need to be very aware of what we do and how we do it to safeguard our customers' interests and overall the organizations and the business interests. Thank you.
Well said, Ashton. It's a fine balance, and data is the new oil, and things are evolving. Gone are the days that you set up, a strategy for consumers or safeguarding your own businesses, and it would keep going, and you would just tweak, because days, are different. Today's age and time, it has to be, things have to evolve at a very fast pace, and we were pushed by COVID to go into complete lockdown overnight. So absolutely valid. Thank you for sharing your perspective. Moving on to Ganpati, and as we fondly call him, Gana, from Hawking Group. So given your expertise and role as a analytics, global analytics, advanced analytics COE, Gana, what's according to you currently many sectors don't have organized data, right? So there is a big challenge, and Ashton also touched upon it, and absolutely right, garbage in, garbage out. If you don't really have the right structured data and right information, how are you going to really have insights and structured inputs that would go into your strategy, or for that matter, even to improve customers' experience? So how do you look forward to solving the uncertainty and variable supply and demand in the market that is happening in your own sector and generally across the value chain that will help us in AI and machine learning. So talking about the data integrity and capture of right information and those giving insights and propelling the strategy for any segment for that matter. So Gana, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Priya. I was expecting somewhat a similar question given all the data discussion we were having. So, I've been in the industry for more than 2 decades. I've been with multiple organizations. So there's always a project which doesn't have data, right? So there are always use cases where the teams come back and says, I don't have this data, that data. But on the flip side of it is, transactions are happening in any organization. Each transaction generates data. Now, it depends on how easily available, accessible the data are, and that is where the crux is. Now, to address this, we have followed broadly, if I group them into, I would say, some of the approaches are non-technical, some of them are technical. So let me talk about both of them, right? Now, on the non-technical side, there is always a view of, can we establish some partnership both with our customers, our suppliers, other, even some extent, even competitors coming together to share data. And then we also have the open source data where syndicated data is made available at a cost. The second thing is, I've seen some cases where, we build a solution or application, give it for free for our customers, for our partners. Then in that process, try to get data out of it, right? Now, the third approach is there are always use cases struggling for data. So prioritize the one where we can achieve, if not 100%, there is 80-85% good enough data to go. And then the third one is invest in infrastructure and free up your team from unwanted heavy lifting. Now, if you don't have a data which is not yet collected, focus on something where, can we use that some surrogate metrics to, take care of the data. And most importantly, the visibility to the management and the key stakeholders on how good is your data quality measurements, creating transparency around, what attributes of the data are really important for you and what are them which you can live with. These are some of the non-technical aspects, I would say. Sorry for them. And then coming to the technical, there are a lot of techniques available now. Even if you have a limited amount of data set, there are specific algorithms, like let's say you go for ensemble technique, for example, or you go for naive related algorithm where you make some assumptions related to conditional independence. So you start to live with what is the maximum insight I can derive with a given amount of data I have. Now, the another approach which we have been also trying out is what we call it as a transfer learning. So whatever network you develop for one particular problem or a use case, try whether you can use as a brownfield approach for another problem instead of rebuilding the entire model from scratch. And there are also things we go to some of the deep learning related techniques where typically data becomes a big challenge, especially on the images. There are smart ways, if you are not really interested in the relative positioning of an image, rotate it, you get more images, right? There are techniques like SMART, where you continuously synthesize those kind of samples which are typically minority in your overall population. But overall, I have seen one thing which is working is if you couple your data scientists with the business experts, there are innovative ways to come back and say, if I don't have a particular data element, can I do some innovative feature engineering to come back and say, how do I make the best out of my existing data? So to summarize, whatever you have established large number of data lakes, still there are some use cases, there are still data scientists walking up and saying, I don't have this data or that data. But I think some of organizations do have data, right? It's all a question of how do we smartly couple it and get to live with whatever you have and then generate the ROI. Then you can invest it back to putting in place additional sensors, additional data capturing mechanism to get moving. So the graph is always green, saying this industry has got more data and this another industry has got lesser data. But I have seen multiple industries in my own career. I can tell you not a single industry is 100% complete with whatever data they want for each and every use cases they come across with. So that is what a quick feedback on the given topic, Priya.
Great, Gana. Very insightful and absolutely apt input. I mean, how much data can be captured and what is the integrity of that data? But how can companies work with imperfect data, with surrogates, and really make those data sets also to really drive outcomes? So very, very valid input. And of course, learning from whatever insights and trying and improvising that input vector is an evolving process. So thank you, Gana, for that perspective. Really appreciate it. Moving forward, Chirag, welcome first and foremost, and you bring in very, very different, kind of skill set and industry that you belong to. So my question to you really, and audience would really love to hear, talking about technology and new age tools and techniques, the tools that we're talking about as the, main key focus area in today's conversation in the panel. How are they advancing in the real estate arena, and what does it take to build a security first customer acquisition mindset in the space that you operate? With the rate of innovation that's happening in the technology, how does one choose the right technology solution, Chirag? And if you could just tell us your thought process around it, would be really appreciated.
Sure. Thank you very much, Priya. Wonderful to be part of this panel. Yeah, I represent this, real estate industry, and I've been in this industry for almost a decade now. And I must, it's a safe harbor statement that, I'm representing the industry, not the company as such. So, tech adoption, in the real estate industry has been at the superficial level. That's my observation. And as a matter of fact, somewhere one of the stats where I saw that, tech adoption is just above agriculture as far as real estate is concerned. So today that complacency is it has undergone a change. What COVID has done is that it has brought the real estate industry veterans out of the comfort zone. I believe that innovation in this sector is absolutely inevitable as of now. What I see is real estate industry is actually going through a fundamental and a tectonic shift towards a data-driven future. It's a tech-enabled and a data-driven future. Now, why I say this is because location is sadly not good enough in the real estate industry. World had already moved on from love at first sight to love at swipe right? So real estate industry was supposed to catch up on, right? I can quote innumerable examples, probably just to give a perspective, probably 2 examples, let's say, from the time you procure, from the time you buy the apartment till the time you move in, and from the time you move in and you live in the community, the entire journey was fragmented. It was in silo. I can quote examples like, from your site visit to your KYC, to co-applicant, to invoicing, to payment, to agreement signing, to your floor plans, to snagging. All of these examples, if you are going to relate to yourself, it was done on phone calls or emails, or at best, you get it done through WhatsApp nowadays, right? But things were supposed to be changed because the tech was evolving, and this is a classic example where a mobile tech can actually help completely digitize and make life simpler for our consumers. And we actually did this during the COVID. We actually launched this app where from the time you buy till the time you move in, the entire aspect, KYC, e-invoices, agreement signing, snagging, floor plans, your TDS, name a thing, your KYC, everything is actually on a click of a mouse or on your mobile app, right? That's one example. This is actually foundation. There's nothing exceptional about it. Let's talk about leveraging the deep techs. I represent this company, Real Estate Group, which has a sizable stake in the commercial real estate, like the business parks of the world, and almost Fortune 50 companies are pretty much part of our ecosystem. Now, asset management is extremely sensitive. Like, we cannot have downtimes there. We cannot have the gensets and the HVACs not working, right? The world had moved on, and if you see, we had this reactive maintenance, and then we moved on to preventive maintenance. But the preventive is not good enough. Once in a month, if someone and your vendor actually comes and checks your genset, it's not good enough. The tech actually helps you to do much more. And I can give a very simple, easy to understand example. Even before a physical asset like genset or generator set or HVAC goes bad, what it does is that it doesn't generate heat before that. It doesn't vibrate as such. What it does is it draws extra current from the power source. When it draws extra current is when it should set an alarm saying that something is going wrong with this device because it corroborates and it is higher than the normal, right? So, and then comes the heating part, then comes the vibration, and then actual breakdown. So imagine if this data, I mean, Shashwat was talking about IoT sensors. I think this data is absolutely doable, and we have done it actually. And it does make a huge difference because you can actually predict a potential downtime and actually avoid the breakdown. It is not preventive, it is predictive in nature, right? Um, and then I can probably go back and say that adversity like this is actually creating opportunities, right? Life is not about waiting for the storm to pass, but learning to probably dance in the rain and then thrive, not just survive but thrive in these opportunities. So it's a great opportunity. um, uh, I believe that real estate industry is poised for innovation and a lot of technologies, a lot of solutions in the market which are completely revolutionizing the industry, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. Back to you, Priya.
Thank you, and very passionately made the point, Chirag, and absolutely, very, very valid input that it's no more about BCP, and COVID really taught us. And as you rightly said, it's not only about weathering the storm, but moving forward and learning out of it. So, and unlearning few things. So now, technically speaking, there is no downtime for you to really have a BCP and a disaster recovery and so on and so forth, because consumers are expecting, be it any industry, that you are real time, 24/7, 365 days. So very, very, insightful inputs from you, Chirag. And we are sure the industry is at the cusp of next level of evolution and really well poised. So thank you for that. Moving forward, interesting, panel diversity. And we have Dipendra from Jungli Games, and who else can throw more light on how the whole arena about gaming and leisure and all of that is evolving, and of course backed by analytics and insights and mindset and personalization and hyper personalization, so to say. So Dipendra, from your standpoint, if you look at automation, can you share your insights and thoughts on in what are the new consumers looking like, the new customers in this segment looking like, and what are the industry trends that you're witnessing? How these insights around consumer trends really reshaping and you are reimagining the landscape, the technology around AI, kind of helping increase the engagement as part of this loop, So you can share your views around that, Dipendra.
Yeah, Priya, thank you. Thanks, everyone. And thank you, Priya, for giving me this opportunity. But so talking about the gaming industry is not a need based industry like food or any other. So in gaming, it's a leisure industry. You want to play, you don't want to play. At sometimes you have time to play. We don't know. But what we know is basis your customer footprint. So in today's world, your product has to be engaging, and to make that engaging product, you need to understand your customer. So customer, and to understand that customer, it's a vicious cycle. You need to do those A/B tests around your product so that what he clicks, what color he likes. So right, starting from those A/B experiments where we just change simple buttons to the UI UX, we do those kind of analytics where we see that what is a high correlation with specific buttons or specific colors for a specific customer. So that's why we create, so for even for a fantasy tables where people come in and create their teams and join. So it's moving, the customer demand or customer requirement is moving every hour, and so is our pricing. We move the pricing every hour basis the flow of customers. So I'll give you an example of how this entire piece of customer journey is mapped and how that is done. So right from a customer, we do a lot of social listening as well, where we see what is today's sports enthusiast or gaming enthusiast wants. what is they want, we start making those changes, we run a campaign, we have people joining in, then we do a lot of campaign analytics, how much effective our campaign is, what impactful impact that CTL or CPI, or that how much impression is there and how much ROI is there, right from a basic cost confusion matrix to market mix modeling we create. So how much effectively we are spending. So right, once a customer starts transacting, we do a lot of transactional analytics around his pricing, and so as to have more engaging customer, what table he is entering into, what price point he wants, so that we recommend accordingly. We want to increase that engagement. We create those milestones around that. We recommend him right tables. And again, that cloud tools like cloud, Facebook audience, Google audience give us the quality, what quality of customer that we have. With social listening, we get to know that what we are not doing right. So that's how our entire customer journey is mapped. And I'll give you an example with Candy Crush Saga. That's not from my industry, but Candy Crush Saga is a very good example of how a gaming industry, and that is into every game, but this is adaptive gaming now. You play at a different pace, different intellect, you have a different intellect, you play at a different pace, and accordingly the game will adjust for you. It's that kind of tailor-made the tailor-made the product is for every individual. And to top it all, COVID has, as my fellow panelists already talked about, COVID has like accelerated this. Now we have 2.5x increased footprint on a product, and we are through analytics and machine learning. With 1:6 is the ROI. So every $1 spent, you get $6 out of it. So that is one aspect of analytics and AI that is bringing in, where they are engaging customers, and we are also not only engaging customers but making in place. So somebody, we know at what time a specific customer is playing. So not only right creating that recommendation tables and all that, but also messaging has to be very subtle and at time. Somebody would want somebody would be reading your WhatsApp messages. So with some set of audience, you get a click-through rate through WhatsApp. For some, you get it through Telegram, and for some, you get it through pop-up messaging. And we also know who has uninstalled the app. So for them, the messaging has to be WhatsApp or the normal email message. And we also do and our email campaigns are targeted not to sell, but email campaigns are targeted to educate. That's how we create an engaging environment from the product and outside the product through AI and analytics to bring in more customers.
Fantastic.
Over to you, Priya.
Fantastic. Good, diverse, input. And indeed, gaming industry needs a lot of one size fits all approach doesn't work. And as you said, that level of nth, detailing and mapping of the consumer mindset is extremely important. Thank you, Deependra. Moving on, Jasjeet, welcome, and you represent a very dynamic and very happening industry, which is supply chain. At TCI SCS, I understand that you deal with across logistics and supply chain solutions. So listening through our fellow panelists, the new technologies and innovation that is happening in this space, and so much of dynamism with advanced robotics and blockchain. So if you could just throw some light on how would you advise to use analytics to create a proper segmentation and communication strategy? Just read some examples and some case studies and use cases. If you could just throw some light on that.
Thank you, Priya. It's great to be here and listening to all the fellow panelists. Like some of you probably had the option of last year that whether your industry is actually working or not, it wouldn't really make a big difference. But supply chain didn't have that luxury. You needed food on the table, you needed stuff going around. So supply chain didn't have the luxury of just sitting it out and waiting for the storm to pass. But having said that, we generally remember the latest storm. We have been living in a VUCA world for a very long time. And it is not that COVID has been the first of its kind. There have been plagues earlier, but this is one which is a recent memory and which we have so far lived through. And when we say that COVID is the greatest event of our life, I want to add a word there, so far. We do not know what's ahead. And maybe like Raj mentioned, some of the textbooks we need to rewrite on our own as we go along. Now, typically in an industry like ours, which is from farm to fork or from source to deliver, a thing like COVID, which is a major health crisis where people cannot meet each other, they cannot greet each other, yet you have to keep these supply chains moving. So, we didn't stop for a single day. There was not a single day where we didn't go to work all through the pandemic. Why? Even with the most advanced robotics across the world also, there are humans which are required for many activities. And we'll come to that bit about robotics versus man and the return on investment part of it. But looking at broadly from the innovation point of view, innovation has always been about 4 parts. It's been incremental, it's been architectural, it's been probably disruptive, and been radical. What has happened with COVID, it has become 2 or 3 of these put together. And mostly innovation came from the customer, from a customer need, what he wanted, how to make things better for him. This time, this came in from the environment at large. So it came like a storm. When this came in, how did people manage the show? Actually, just something in terms of digital transformation or the internet, which has been happening, which was there for about 10 years before it became an overnight sensation. So companies in logistics and supply chain always understood that the flow of information is as important as the material. The owner of FedEx, Frederick Smith, has gone record of saying this statement. So, companies like us, we were on the cloud since 2007. That's 14 years ago. It's a private cloud. So information flow has always been there. The backend has always been there. What we had to do was to rewrite some of the rules. But given the 2020 scenario, where you had a lot of infra in place, like you had the broadbands in place, you had the mobile tech in place, you had affordability in place, the tech companies, the towers were already there. So this was something which was, as an ecosystem, already there. We may say that we have done it. Yeah, but there was a lot of things which were already there, we could do it. Were the internet not working? Could we have done it? Probably the work from home would have gone for a toss. So a lot of stuff was already there. So in terms of the tech, I think a lot of us has been there in the past. The VUCA world made it important for us to be there. So what changed in this time? I think the major change in this time has been conquering fear. Looking at things from, as somebody mentioned in this group, from a very new perspective. Looking at things very radically and looking at things as if we were redesigning things all over again. So probably 10 years of innovation got compressed into 6 months and a year. In terms of technology, what has been the best and cheapest servant is probably RPA, which is a robotic process automations. Those have been the ones which are a no-brainer, has helped everybody getting things done in the absence of humans also. In terms of tech coming in, for example, like robotic warehouses. Now we run India's first robotic warehouse in the country. Is it economical? No. Is it efficient? No. Why? Because right now we are not to that scale. We are not to that processes. We have amongst a study visited about 100 factories across the world, seen the best of the warehouses in Europe and the US in terms of how processing happens. Normally in India, you have a man going to the shelf and taking an item. It's called man to goods. In larger warehouses, it's goods to man. The goods are in a silo. They come to a man who just sorts and picks them up. It requires scale. It also requires a different kind of a cost structure. India, 1.3 billion people with a 3 trillion economy, has a very low PPP. So for us, it's not only about efficiency, it's also about cost. We cannot have cost which is 4x. People cannot afford it. And if you look at what has happened in the last 2 years, 2012, 2020, the bottom 50% of the country were about 6.5% of country's wealth in 2012. Now they are 2.8%. They've gone back. So in our country, you cannot, overemphasize the value of cost. So for us in logistics, we have to ensure that it remains very frugal. it remains very agile. And what our experience has been right from e-commerce, we run the largest warehouses for the best in the country. We run warehouses for the _1 company in consumer durables. We also run supply chains for automotive. Almost every car which you would be driving would have either had a part come from us or been delivered by us. That's the kind of engagement we have in the automotive. And also in steel. One thing has been common in all these sectors, be it the core sector or others, that everybody had the wherewithal to gear up. And in terms of technology being there, things like telematics, things like IoT, not to a very large extent, but if you look at a FASTag, this already got done a bit before. And now you are able to move through the country seamlessly. GPS devices working with a system, where your consignments are, you can track at any point in time. So a lot of stuff has been there in place, and all the industries have been able to catch up. When and how will more robotics happen? I think it's a question of that PPP coming in and the scales coming in. The scales are not yet to come in. We are still a very much service-driven industry. So we'll have to take it easy, and tech has to be based on the need for tech and not the just for the heck of it. Companies like ours have something called a COE, Center of Excellence, as part of it. And the main objective of the COE is to ensure that we deliver cost and quality together. Thanks, Priya. Hope I gave you the answer.
Sure. Absolutely. Jasjeet, very, very, pertinent inputs. And, just for the sake of automation or sake of innovation is of no value unless you look at the entire paradigm of cost and people and, kind of output. A very, valid inputs, because during COVID, even getting the basics of supplies like milk and basic food supply was a challenge. And, I do acknowledge that the industry has really played a very important role, like healthcare and a couple of other, essential services. So thank you, Jasjeet. And Gana has to leave for another meeting. Gana, any parting comments or key takeaways, very briefly, crisply, you want to share with our audience, Gana?
Sure. So I think we spoke about AI, ML technology revolution. I think a couple of parting messages is it is going to affect. Nobody can say I'm immune to it. But the question is, will it affect altogether? Probably the answer is no. I think what I have come across is simpler to solve problems is where the first it will start helping us. And the complex problem will take time. So even if we take the example of the car, manually operated wipers got replaced by automated wipers, right? The manually cranking engine got replaced by electric starter driven engines. All of them have happened many years ago, but the self-driving is still under trial. So simple problems get solved faster, and then a ecosystem of the simple solution will finally end up into a complex problem and solution accordingly. I think that is what I want to leave with.
Lovely. Thank you. It was a great honor to have you on board, Gana. Thank you. Moving to Raj. Raj, you represent a very, very essential and a core, part of our daily lives. You represent Domino's, Jubilant Foodworks. So according to you, what are the key strategies and implementation techniques, fast forward, future forward, if you look at, ultimately making it far more easier to migrate to next generation operations, right? Because it's going to be large scale, personalized, innovative mechanism. So what are the kind of models across sectors, and how businesses, especially Domino's, keeping up with the technology and the digital evolution? So Raj, over to you.
Thank you, Priya. And the two parts to your question and answer. One, a lot of food for thought, Jasjeet, there. So while you bring food to the table, we also deliver food to the table in some way. While my fellow colleagues have talked a lot about tech, AI, robotics, hardware, I thought of answering the same, but I think I need to talk about something about software, which is the softer aspects of it. I believe there are three building parts to, if you want to get any of the projects going, which is one is, and to my mind, coming from a consumer industry, is all about putting the customer experience at the heart of the next generation operating models. It's going to be a lot about culture and capabilities, not just about tech. While that's going to be important one for sure. And that's the second part, building cross-functional foundations to make any project sustainable, because you might have projects in silos, and all of us come from this where you have data analytics, you have tech, and there's operation team that says it's not okay, or this is not important. Therefore, having to have that burning platform to bring people together to make those happen. Let me elaborate on the first one. I think the It's all going to be all about mapping the customer journey. If you all think around that versus working on our only tech projects, just mapping the customer journey and the processes around it will be very important. Let me give an example of it. March, when we were going through COVID first time, March 2020, when we thought about COVID happening, we just had 3 cases in India, no deaths. We could visualize at Domino's that this could become big. I was leading the team and I said, what if scenarios? And we realized that customers would really fear if somebody is coming and delivering pizzas to them. And therefore, we looked out internationally. We got the tech team together, the marketing team, and we looked at zero contact delivery. We were the first in the country. By 17th of March, across India, we had trained around 30,000 of our team members to do zero contact delivery. That the guy would ring your bell, move 6 feet back, leave it on a table there in a paper bag, and you're not really interacting with the person, human being there. So that's just bringing, the tech part, where our tech was able to turn this around very quickly, and also about our entire operations, everybody bringing together. The second part, and I think bringing it together, another example I can give again from the industry, and we talked about it, national lockdown in April, May made accessible to essentials like even milk, feed, food, anything. Absolutely, neighborhood karanas were shut down. There was no big basket, there was no Amazon, no milk basket here to deliver any of the food. And I had 30,000 team members who were trained drivers. So we pivoted the business model. Again, we worked in 3 days flat with our tech team, digital team, everybody. And we launched on our own Domino's app, the Domino's Essentials, tied up with the firms like ITC, Amul, and Tata. And we started delivering as Domino's Essentials like atta, dal, chawal, rice. And you know what it did? The entire team members whom we had to really convince to go out and make deliveries, they just lifted up. They felt so good. And we coined them as food soldiers. We told them, you're not just doing Domino's, but you're food soldiers because you're delivering food. So I think a lot of it is all about bringing 2 things together, mapping the customer journey of where customers coming from, and therefore, doing actions basis that. I would just say that as an organization, while I work with Domino's Pizza, at the heart of it, and our ambition is to become a food tech powerhouse. We don't think ourselves as just a pizza company. Pizza happens to be in a product that we're delivering today. But we really, in our mind and thinking, is all about how do we get this data analytics. We look at all kind of medium frequency, high frequency customer cohorts. We look at all kind of tech and AI to see that when the customer could be ordering. And in that regard, I think few things that we've done, and we'll always be omni-channel, which will have a store there, and you'll have also delivery being there. But it's all going to be all frictionless, seamless. Look at Netflix to the example, right? People move from one channel to another, different modes, and you can pick up the movie from there. And that's the experience that we want to build in our stores as well. One of the things that we did is about a drive and pick. For example, we realized that the customers don't want to get into the stores with COVID fear being there, and says, why don't we actually deliver it to the customer in the car? 2 years back, I started delivery on trains. I don't know whether you know that. Domino's does delivery on Indian Railways. So we can, if you can deliver a passenger on the seat, I said, why can't we deliver to the guy in the car outside? And that's one of the ways that we've also looked at, bringing the product to the customer. Other things that we're working on and exciting and lot to be done along with the tech and AI teams is all about, there's 30 minutes or free delivery. So can I move it? And these are aspirations. My CIO and CTO will kill me if I kind of tell them and push buttons, is that how can I make it proactive? Yeah, they're all watching and they will say, and that's why I'm saying the essential partners. And this is, why can't I make it proactive? If I am 31st minute late, boom, you'll have money in your account saying, sorry, you'll get a message that, okay, when the person is delivering, you'll get the money in the wallet there. Because the competition today is not with QSR chains. It's about with Amazon, it's with Flipkart, it's about Netflix, in a way of how consumer is experiencing all around. Second is all about going to be personalization. So if you're a vegetarian, Priya, I don't know you are or not, but then why should you even see the non-veg menu when you open our Domino's app? So in our app, you would see probably personalized menu. We already have a reorder, wherein within 10 seconds, you can reorder by not even going in the app, just press it long. You can reorder the first order that you placed in the past. There's a lot of work that is happening there, and 87% of our business today, is contributed by digital assets. What more can I say? So very exciting, and looking forward to, I've learned a lot. I was taking a lot of notes with my fellow panelists here, so we'll incorporate this with my teams there. So looking forward to.
Lovely. Thank you. And that's a great example of how we can twine in the purpose and helping people around with our daily jobs and inspire our workforce and deliver the larger good. I mean, extremely excited to hear about all the innovation that you mentioned. On that note, I think we have had a very power-packed conversation. It is about resilient leadership, prepare tomorrow and win. Prepare today and win tomorrow. So it's all about leadership thought process around technology, innovation, and impact on future, that whatever we're creating today. So on that note, I would request one word from each one of you as a parting, last comment, one single word, very like a rapid input. Why don't we start with Sash with you? Just one word and leave a thought for our viewers today.
Can I use 3? So it's tech, tech, and tech.
Okay, lovely. Tech, tech, and tech. Jasjeet, over to you.
I think solutions of today find their home in tech. And in terms of the people part, we have to focus a little bit more on the people part as we emerge away from the COVID. And if we take people and tech together, then magic happens. Thank you.
Lovely. Magic happens indeed. Chirag, one word, just mindful as is the first session. I want to give back the panel to the, moderator, the host. Chirag, one word. I think you're on mute, Chirag.
Yeah. So there are two things. The new normal is the most abused word, and the you are on mute is the next most abused tactic. So I think we should work towards building the next normal together, and I'm pretty sure we can do it together.
Fantastic. Deependra, over to you.
Yeah, so I would say AI supports personalization, but customer needs personalized products but at the same time are also price sensitive. So there needs to be a balance between AI and getting things at the end consumer at the right price.
Right. Innovation and keeping the customer at the center. Raj, quickly, one word.
3, cry, try, and fly. We've been through the cry stage. We've tried. This is time for us to fly now.
Lovely. Such a good analogy. Ashton, reserving the best for the last. Ashton, over to you.
So I'll end with saying change is eternal. Adapt, adopt, and be adapt.
Lovely. I think we've had fantastic conversation, a very power-packed one, and thank you everyone for your valuable time and inputs. I think it's all about resilient leadership. We've learned about customer behavior, converting those insights into actionable insights, role of big data, unlocking the treasure trove of IoT, data analytics, and most importantly, having the consumer at the center and at the heart, and having humanity driving change with innovation. So thank you very much. Over to you, Kavya. Great pleasure to moderate this session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Be safe, stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, indeed. And thank you so much, Priya, for such a beautiful moderation of the session. I'm going to thank all our panelists. What a dynamic conversation we all managed to witness in terms of individual insights and collective leadership coming together. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us at the session, at this conference over here. And thank you, Priya. Thank you again, everyone. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I believe it was a fabulous start indeed to the entire summit, gathering all the perspectives from such amazing leaders. And that's going to be the trend for the rest of the program. So stay with us as you participate in the next set of sessions. And with that, what we're going to do is march forward towards our next panel discussion. So stay with us. We'll get the next discussion started in just a minute.